Welcome to the Independent Agent. Look, today we need to talk about a very specific and, frankly, very urgent reality that is currently reshaping the entire South Florida coastal condo market. Right now, as we speak, there's this invisible barrier disrupting transactions, and it's literally catching experienced sellers and listing agents completely off guard. We're seeing this whole new market dynamic emerge, where the variable that moves a condo's price isn't necessarily the physical condition of the property anymore. It's not even the size of a special assessment. It's actually a hidden underlying status that can completely derail a sale at the 11th hour.
I want you to listen to this quote because it perfectly captures what we're dealing with here. This Aventura building passed its milestone inspection, its reserve study is funded, its assessment is paid, and as of 1 July 2026, it cannot be financed with a conventional loan because its master policy carries a per-unit wind deductible above $50,000. That is the whole reason, nothing about the structure. I really want you to just think about that for a second. You have a structurally sound, financially current oceanfront building in Aventura, and a buyer still cannot close. So why is this happening?
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, Decoding the Status Codes.
To really understand why a sound building fails financing, we've got to look past the physical concrete and rebar. We have to look directly into the databases governing the mortgage industry. A building's financing failure is almost always due to a hidden database status code, not its actual physical condition. And here's the crazy part. Sellers can't even open this database, and buyers don't even know it exists until their loan just suddenly hits a brick wall. In our industry, we constantly throw around the term non-warrantable. Honestly, I want you to strike that from your vocabulary today. It is just lazy industry shorthand. It's not the actual term used by the agencies. The real barriers are these specific, non-public database codes. Fannie Mae's condo project manager will return a status of unavailable. Freddie Mac's condo project advisor, that returns a status of not eligible. You can't just hop online and Google these. It's a system strictly tier-restricted to lenders, managers, and board members. If a building gets flagged with one of these codes, a conventional loan literally stops dead in its tracks.
But we really need to define exactly what these codes actually block, because this is where most listing strategies down here in South Florida go completely wrong. An unavailable or not eligible status blocks conventional financing that is sold to the agencies. Period. That is it. Yes, conventional loans are the dominant share of the market, but this status does not block FHA loans, it doesn't block VA loans, portfolio lending, or cash purchases. Those avenues, they run on completely separate approval regimes. So assuming an ineligible project has just magically lost all of its buyers is a massive analytical error on the agent's part.
And to put this into perspective, let's actually look at the data. As of August 2025, only 3.6% of projects in the system actually held this ineligible status. So what's driving that 3.6%? Well, the top two reasons are insufficient master property insurance and critical repair issues, which includes failing to meet state or local inspection requirements. But notice the order there. Insurance leads, structure is second. The deductible on a master policy isn't just a basic monthly carrying cost anymore, it is a literal binary eligibility trigger.
Moving right along, Section 2, Timelines and Deadlines.
To understand how we even got here, we have to look at the regulatory deadlines currently reshaping the market across Miami-Dade, Broward, and frankly, the rest of Florida. The compliance deadlines that the market spent years anticipating have now passed, and we are actively dealing with the fallout. Let's just walk through this timeline. In July 2025, Florida's HB 913 took effect. By December 31, 2025, we hit the state's Structural Integrity Reserve Study, or the SIRS deadline. And then, compounding the state laws, the mortgage agencies tightened their own mechanisms. Between July 2026 and January 2027, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's new rules start phasing in. They raised reserve requirements to 15%, retired the limited review, ended Florida PRES, and most crucially, they capped the per-unit wind deductible at $50,000 for conventional applications. It's these exact colliding deadlines that are triggering these status failures left and right.
All right, Section 3, Funded Assessment versus Open Repair.
Let's shift our focus up the coast a bit to Fort Lauderdale to illustrate exactly how this plays out in the real world when dealing with structural repairs. We really need to zero in on the critical difference between a funded assessment and an open repair finding. So let me pose a question that I hear from agents literally all the time. Does a special assessment automatically make a condo non-warrantable? There is this widespread assumption that the absolute second a board levies an assessment for concrete restoration, the building is just dead for conventional lending. But that is fundamentally incorrect.
Let's compare two hypothetical buildings right here in Fort Lauderdale. Both are facing major structural repairs and both have assessments levied. Building A has a funded assessment in place and the repair is officially scheduled. To the agencies, this building is eligible. Building B, on the other hand, has an open critical repair finding, but they have zero funding plan in place yet. To the agencies, this building is ineligible. Think about that. They have the exact same headline problem, right? But they have the exact opposite financing outcome. Lenders want the assessment funded and the repair scheduled. This brilliantly illustrates the current reality. The failure in Building B is entirely documentary, it's not physical.
Let's move to Section 4, the Hollywood FHA inversion. Now let's head down the coast to Hollywood and examine what actually happens when that conventional buyer pool vanishes due to an ineligible status. What do you do when the Fannie and Freddie doors slam shut? Ask yourself this. Can an FHA buyer purchase a unit in a building that Fannie Mae flat out refuses to lend on? The immediate knee-jerk instinct from most agents when a building hits that unavailable list is to just market the unit as cash only, because again, that is what that sloppy shorthand of non-warrantable assumes.
But the correct read of the situation is this. The conventional buyer is gone, yes, but the FHA buyer remains. A building can be completely ineligible in the conventional system, but still hold a perfectly current FHA project approval. This is what we call the FHA inversion. If you mistakenly assume an ineligible project loses the FHA buyer too, you have just needlessly removed a massive buyer pool for your seller. Keeping this channel open completely changes your required down payment and your entire marketing strategy.
Next up, Section 5, pricing to remaining channels. So, what happens when you're in Miami Beach, or frankly any of our coastal markets, and a building truly lacks both conventional and FHA approval? If both are totally out, agents must price their listings specifically for the financial channels that actually do remain open to the buyer. If you have to fall back to portfolio and non-QM lending, just look at the financial math we have on the screen here. A buyer is suddenly looking at putting 20% to 30% down. Their interest rates are going to be a good 0.75% to 1.5% higher than standard conventional rates, and lender matrices are commonly capping the loan-to-value at around 70% to 80%. So the crucial point is this: your listing's price discount must mathematically absorb these exact portfolio lender costs. You're essentially compensating the buyer for taking on that heavier financial lift.
Finally, Section 6, closing the CMA gap. This brings us directly to how you, as the real estate professional, have to adapt. You cannot just use a standard comparative market analysis or CMA approach here. A listing agent who prices an unavailable unit against perfectly eligible, warrantable comps in the exact same submarket, they've priced it for a buyer who literally cannot close the loan. Your CMA strategy has to be surgically precise nowadays. First, you absolutely must explicitly name which financing channels remain open. Don't just lazily label it non-warrantable. Second, you have to price to that portfolio or FHA math we just looked at. And third, you must record the specific database status code trigger. If it's a $55,000 wind deductible causing the failure on a pristine building, you document that. You have to know why the building is failing to effectively price around it.
Explaining this hidden database reality to a seller who thinks their building is absolutely perfect, it is incredibly difficult. And this is exactly where you use CMA Flow's Client Replies feature to communicate this complex database status directly and clearly to your seller, without having to draft anything up to a lender or a board. It literally allows you to output a guided, structured explanation of exactly what is happening to their specific unit. Ultimately, the agent who masters this invisible data, the one who actually understands why a sound building fails, is the agent who commands the coastal market. So I'll leave you with this. Are you pricing the concrete, or are you pricing the code?